Jazakallah once again. I think the point on inspire instead of instill fear is also crucial for us to pick up on. And I would like to ask Brother Yusuf to take us to set up for the next speaker. And the next speaker will outline for us what we've defined in a charter for MUSA. So it touches on some of the things that Brother Ibrahim Rasool has mentioned. And also, I would like to ask Brother Ibrahim and the other speakers who are on the panel and the core team to please be available for panel discussions as questions come in. Jazakallah. So Brother Malik Arafat, you will be taking us through the charter, and I want to thank you from the core team, from the bottom of our hearts, for the effort you've put in and inspired us to make the charter come forth into a document that we could all look at, reference and update as a live document as we include more and more people. It defines a great outline, and I'll leave it to you to elaborate on it in terms of how you'd like us to proceed in adopting this charter. Jazakallah. Please proceed.
بسم الله لا يضر مع اسمه شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء ورسول العليم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. Thank you for the platform, Faisal. I hope everybody can see me. We're all new in this technology, and if I make any mistakes, please, you'll have to forgive me. What Ibrahim Rasool said earlier, I think is very, very important, and in some ways he touched on very critical matters that I think we will have to look at. And I think it is important as well to understand that we have to start somewhere, and in the work that we've done, we thought that the only possible way for us to start is to go back to that stage where when the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and his early followers migrated to Medina. And that period or that time marked really the beginning of an organized authority or organized community. And this was really because of the adoption of the Wathiqat al-Madina, a document that became known in history specifically as the first charter or constitution of Muslims, and generally as the first written document of governance that determines the relationships of people under an established authority. What it did was that it gave the rights and obligations of the Muhajirun, who were from Makkah, and the Ansar, the Jewish tribes, the non-Muslims, and the Arab tribes in Medina. And in that document, all those rights and obligations were clearly outlined in that document. There was at the time a significantly large, diverse, multi-ethnic, and multi-religious population of about 10,000 residents in Medina, who were immediately affected and impacted by the Wathiqat al-Madina. And this really for us is an example that in our society where we were about 55 million people, and if you look at Southern Africa, generally we look at larger communities of people, that for us to begin to work with them, we've got to have a document that speaks to us. And the charter really begins to speak to us first as members of MUSA. And we hope by that it will also speak to those who will become our partners, who we are working this journey with, that they will look at it and say, maybe this is what we want to become like. Maybe this is where we want to aspire ourselves to be like. And also be that fluid that brings together the silos that we see happening in our community, and honor and accept the fact that these silos are there for a purpose. Rather than attack them, we'd rather work with them. And as you know, that the emergence of this created the emergence of a singular geographical nation that was comprised of fields and cultures governed by the rule of law that respected local customary laws, guaranteed the protection of human rights, women's rights, social rights, cultural rights, religious freedoms, and the rights of minorities living in Medina at the time. So we hope that the document will achieve that. So going to the document itself, it's very important that we realize that we spent a bit of time thinking about what else could we do. And maybe we should move the slide if you don't mind. We spent time looking at the two possibilities. The possibility of a charter targeting Muslims directly, and this approach would have been an inward approach. It was just better us the whole charter to ourselves, and the second focusing on the roles African Muslims can play in the broader society. And for that reason, what we did was that we created this charter in such a way that it speaks not only to Muslims but to the entire population of this country. And we agreed that our activism would be much more critical, be critically placed within the society. And that for us was critical. Why the charter? There is a need to motivate and mobilize people across the country and possibly the region through social activism, and to take the responsibility for their own development by accessing resources and opportunities in the public and private sectors. And there's no doubt that the lockdown has magnified the reality of the situation, that people at both individual and group levels have lost the capacity to move and mobilize their own resources. And the state, to a great extent, has become the gatekeeper of those resources. And we think this would really place us in a situation where we say to Muslims, you've got examples of the past communities that from the time of Medina to all the way through in Africa until the time of Sokoto of Sheikh Uthman Fudi. And we can learn a lot from that. It is a call to action to build an inclusive society and actively find solutions to our everyday challenges. In other words, where we work with everybody as equals, where we level the playing field rather than this top-down way of doing things, where we say we as Muslims know better than the others, or we are a religious organization or religious movement. Therefore, because of that, we have a proximity to the Creator, and everybody else does not have. It should be inclusive in the sense that we recognize that everybody who lives in the society is part and parcel of this land, and therefore all of us must play as equals in creating solutions for our country. It is also similarly a call to accountable leadership with consequence management imbued with a culture of generosity, sharing, giving, and caring. And Muslims are well known for that, so I won't go into that. But what is also critical is that we need to buy in. So the charter by itself will really remain a living document that will be updated over time. And rather than creating a static document, we thought this is very important because no two times are the same. And it's very important that we allow those that have the capacity or the knowledge or the know-how to input into it as time goes on. In other words, we'll really need all stakeholders to take part in this matter in that way. And I'd like to close by saying that there is no doubt that the traditional distance between leaders and their constituents are fast narrowing, and the voices of members of society are increasingly becoming louder. We want to be part of the majority of the people and have our voice out there. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
Jazakallah, Brother Malik Arafat. That was a very good overview of the charter, and I think the key points that we all need to take from there. I'm sure all of you have taken your own key points for further discussion, but one of the things that I made a note of is broader South African inclusivity, inspired, of course, by our deen and what we have, but really cooperating and working much more broadly with others, and the call to action. And also, I think it gets quite nicely into what Sister Amina is going to talk about now, and what Yusuf and others will speak to later on in terms of the actual strategic objectives and goals. Yunus will also give an outline of how we're going to achieve that. So I was going to suggest some questions and answers now, but I see Sister Malima quite ready to go, and she's got 10 minutes to cover the Constitution, which she said she'll probably take lesser time in. So I'm going to give Sister Amina the opportunity to go ahead and discuss the Constitution outline that's been drafted. It's not set in stone. Everyone should know that we are doing this all as work in progress, seeking your guidance and inclusivity, your insights, your ideas, your leadership to work with us in making this happen. So without much ado, Sister Amina, please go ahead.